In MMO culture, people think that top-tier raid's the hardest thing to do. Not by a long shot. Forget the preliminaries, just drop into it.
If this were any other producer, they'd probably opened up with that title written on their stomach in permanent marker, right? But you don't want to see that on me, because, some guys got the six-pack, I got more of the pony keg going, but I digress. So PUG's right. In an MMO sense, a PUG is an acronym. It stands for a pickup group. It's probably the most common type of group that you see now, but it always hasn't been. Because I remember way back when I was playing Wrath of the Lich King, you had to dredge city chat for a group, and it was a pain. Then they introduced Dungeon Finder, and it made so much more of the game accessible to so many people. The system is used in a lot of other games too, and on the user's end, it's actually pretty simple. You just hit a specific button or a hotkey, you tap a Q button of some kind, then you wait for some other people who need to run the instance and do the same thing somewhere else. You're then suddenly whisked away to the instance with your group, and you just go.
Before they introduced the Dungeon Finder, I could count the number of instances I did on, maybe two hands. But afterwards, it was actually just kind of part of the game. If you wanted to level really quickly, you would park yourself in a major town and just run instances and level up that way. As you can imagine, it was pretty heavily criticized.
And of course, the old guard complained about how easy the new players had and how it dumbed down the game and, all the other things that old jaded geezers complain about. But it stays because it makes the game better for everyone. People who play at odd hours, people who can't commit a full-time job hour to a raiding guild, people who only want to dabble in instances. There are dozens of reasons to have a Dungeon Finder, so, like it or not, since it opens up content, it stays, and the more content people have available to them, the more happier they are. Now, I realize that the back and Monty crowd would prefer that gamers suffer like they claim to have done, but sorry, we don't all have a masochistic streak in us.
At least not in gaming. And we're not all masochists, Don't visualize.
So yeah, complain all you want, PUGs are staying around. Heck, World of Warcraft even gives you a pet PUG as an achievement reward for doing pickup groups. But the sword has two edges, of course, and for all the benefits it has, there's a lot of downsides too.
But those downsides... Yeah, that's why I say that pugging is the most difficult thing that you can do in an MMO. And the reason is actually pretty simple. It's just from the word go, everything is working against you.
To understand where we're starting from, we gotta start in the real world. Now, I do come from a team sports background, but mostly it's in pickup games like this. In each one of these cases, your team is assigned to you for the most part, and it works for one reason that online PUGs so often fail. We communicate in the real world.
Okay. Okay, so come in and just shoot toward the end.
Yeah.
Okay.
Basically,
I will try my best.
It doesn't take much, but this information is pretty vital to a successful game. Now compare that to a PUG in something like, DCUO. There's no cross-chat at all. You get a hello if you're lucky, but for the most part, people just take off and they go. So if you've never done the instance before, well, learn fast. I find this is the case in a lot of these games with fast and intense instances. It's straight to business, let's get this over with, let's get the reward, let's get on with things. Sometimes it's by necessity. Rocket League, they don't have a lot of talking going outside the instant emotes, even on the built-in voice chat. But it's also cross-platform, and most PlayStation owners don't have a keyboard hooked up to their system. You could argue the same thing for DCUO, but even before the cross-platforming that they started to do, people would only talk to complain or threaten or, whatever.
Without this very basic level of communication, you're working at a massive disadvantage, and if you don't believe me, who does better at a game of League of Legends, the team with or without Ventrilo? But, you can work around that. As long as you have the ability to see into the future.
No, seriously, it's part psychology, part reading the field, part luck, and a whole lot of experience. But, you can almost always tell what your teammates are going to do well before they even think about doing it. I can best show this in Rocket League, because if I'm put in a 3-on-3 match, I can assume a couple things about my teammates. I can assume that for the most part they're going for individual glory, and they're probably going to go for more points, so they're always going to be pushing on the ball. They're going to pass on team opportunities to get a couple more personal points, and they're going to ram me, and I'm going to ram them because we're looking at the ball and not the ground the entire time. And if they know how to use the D-pad quick messages for more than just good shot, then they probably know what they're doing for the most part. So just assuming they're going to be hyper-aggressive comes in very handy, because I know they're going to want to go mainly chasing the ball like a dog off the lead. I don't mind playing midfield or defense and letting them do their thing. They're happy that I'm not in their way. And I've also found a few sets of universal plays that I can set up, and my teammates can just hammer the ball home.
And you could repeat this with any given online game that has an online feature like this. If you just assume that your teammates are there for personal gain and you are there to facilitate their personal gain, you can adjust your tactics accordingly. But there's more to it than just telling the future. There's always more to it.
Another PUG flaw is this assumption that everyone knows what they're doing. DC was pretty bad for this. World of Warcraft is even worse. As I said, out of the gate, down to business, let's go. It's kind of funny, actually. Most people would rather spend 10 minutes doing and failing a mission rather than take 2 minutes to explain the basic tactics of the mission. Actually, come to think of it, most of these so-called experts wouldn't know the tactics beyond, well, it worked last time, let's do the same thing again. But again, you can work around this. If you're in a situation like this and you don't have time to say, hey, I'm new, I've never done this before, you can play follow the leader. Someone's going to take point, someone always takes point, and they're just going to start moshing. Follow behind them, see who they're targeting, and then just do the same. Yeah, this isn't optimal. In fact, I'd venture to say it's a really sucky way to play, but it'll get you through an instance where nobody's telling you what's going on, and it'll help you beat, a lot of the bad guys anyway.
Actually, come to think of it, there's some instances in PUGs that you don't want to say, hey, I'm new, I've never done this before, because in a lot of these MMOs, they'll just kick you out.
No, I'm not kidding. DCUO introduced this kick mechanic some years ago, and they defend it. At any time, you can vote to kick out any party member, and if a majority of the team agrees, that person's gone. Most of the time, it's both a punishment and a scapegoat tool. The party's doing poorly because there's lack of communication, so you kick out the lowest DPS, or you kick the healer because obviously they can't keep up, or you kick the tank for failing to hold aggro. Or, as happened a lot, you just kick out someone at the end boss so your friend can come in and they can get easy loot. Well, never mind the fact that the healer can't do miracles, tanks can't protect you from your own stupidity, and the lowest DPS is doing this raid to get better geared so they can do higher DPS, but whatever. We go to the original assumption that players are here for their own goals. And in a PUG, if they think you're in the way of their goal, yeah, they're just going to kick you out, no pressure, right? So the argument of, the other people, they get so annoyed they can just leave. Yeah, that never really enters into their mind because of this thing called the deserter penalty. Most MMOs have them now. It's a timeout for leaving the party. So instead, they'll just start kicking people out so they can stay. And these idiots justify this by saying, well, they can just re-queue, but it doesn't account for the lost time, energy, and resources already spent to haul your sorry carcass through this instance. Now, barring that, DCUO also had this thing called Disband Instance, and it was a function where one person could vote to just end the instance for everyone. The trolliest of puggers would do this mid-fight, and people would just click yes just to get this big thing out of their face on the screen. Or they would spam it like a child throwing a temper tantrum until they got what they wanted, if they thought the group was just fail group. Or if they didn't get the drop that they wanted, or, whatever. But let's go back to the real world for a moment. I have played on several pickup teams where I have absolutely loathed the people that I was playing with. I have played against stacked teams, I have been set up to fail, I have had teammates who were utterly useless save for their ability to absorb oxygen from the air. But you play anyway with the team you have. You suck it up, you swallow your pride, and you get on with the game.
And the reason for that is social, because when you're standing face to face with somebody, it's really hard to look somebody in the eye and say, you need to kill yourself and go die in a fire. That, and if you were to talk like that to one of your teammates on a paintball field, yeah, any good referee would bounce your ass off the field so fast you'd leave craters on the access road. In the real world, this kind of crap isn't tolerated. But online, it's kind of like breathing.
This is why you get sentiments like this guy from my live stream chat one night, and it's also why I think pugs are seen as, for lack of a better way to put it, dirty. It's part toxicity, it's part selfishness, part flagrant disregard for other people. And ironically, it's the people who are the loudest about how bad pugs are that are always the worst players within the pugs they join. They're the first one to blame somebody else for their own failures, and they scapegoat them out of the group, and they're the first ones to declare fail group because of one stumble. They feel like they have to carry the team because to them there is no team. It's just them being awesome, and then they have to carry all these scrubs behind them. I think it's a trust thing because they don't trust anyone outside of themselves, so they decide they have to do everything for everyone. It doesn't work like that. For a pug to work, you need to let go and trust your teammates, and for a lot of people, this is terrifying. I say things like that, and I'm going to get a lot of yeah buts and a lot of apologists. Well, I have to carry a group. No, you don't have to carry a group. You choose to carry a group. You choose not to trust your team sight unseen, and you choose your own reactions. Now, I can come up with solutions to this, but they're too easily abused in the real world, like a reputation system, a guild rep system, player-voted good, bad teammate rankings, way too easy to abuse. And if someone has an off day, yeah, they can have their entire rep ruined by a vindictive teammate.
All of that said, why would I still want to play in a pug? Everybody is pretty much socially repugnant, and why would I want to put myself through that? Because I like a good challenge.
You know, this is going to come off as sounding conceited, but you know what? The hell with it, I'm being honest. I've played on real-life teams before. We've done practices, scrimmages, had the whole team unity thing, and it gets dull. The ultimate reward of winning really wasn't worth the game becoming mechanical. And it's not about being fun, it's about perfect execution and nothing else. Now, I've been on some awesome teams in my life, and I've had teammates who I would trust with my life if it came down to it, but the game just felt robotic, not fun. Then there's this other issue of getting everyone together. You know, real life happens, so the plans to go out to the field on a Saturday morning, they're just chucked out the window when someone's kid gets sick, or they get sick, or the other half gets sick, or work has mandatory overtime, and these are all things that you can't really be mad at somebody else for, because life happens, and I'm okay with that. I mean, we're still friends at the end of the day. But when you want to get a game going, it's not that easy. On the other hand, I can get into a PUG-style group almost any time of day. And I like the challenge of figuring out my own team while trying to figure out the other team. It sounds odd, but I actually get some hope for humanity when I'm playing in a PUG that clicks. A small group of strangers can work together towards a common goal without communicating to each other. When you think about it, that's a hell of an accomplishment. If 4 people can do this, why not 10, 20, 100, 1,000?
So yeah, I might just be a hopeless romantic dreamer, you know? Well, that, and it's really hard to call up my friends at 3 o'clock in the morning and say, hey, you want to go play Rocket League? You want to go raid or something like that? For some of you people, that might not be a problem, but for me, it is. I have a feeling out of everything in this episode, this is going to be the one joke that's going to fail because nobody's going to know what this is. Oh wait, this is the internet. Of course they know what it is.